Hello and welcome to this first introductory podcast. I'm spiritual medium Shannon and this is Spiritual Sharing. For those of you who would be interested in checking out a little bit more of my socials, you can do so by heading to Instagram or YouTube and following Spiritual Medium Shannon. Or you can head over to my website where I will provide a link for that in the description sections of this podcast. With all of that said, what you can expect from this very new, very raw podcast, Spiritual Sharing, is just that. This will be a place where I will share a lot of my spiritual knowledge, my spiritual journey, what I'm currently learning, and my experiences. With all that said, I hope you enjoy Spiritual Sharing with me, Spiritual Medium Shannon. Good morning and welcome back to Spiritual Sharing. I thought that I would start this week's podcast off by talking about how I actually prepare for a reading, the process that I go through, and how I get into a meditative state. For me, this is still very much a learning process. I imagine it will be forever, like working with working with spirit and performing readings, tarot and I can tell that this is going to be something that I'm going to evolve and change and adapt and sort of rewrite and re-understand for a very long time. And that's just, I've come to learn that that's sort of just the nature of working with your intuition. Is nothing is sort of concrete or set in stone, especially when it comes to the spiritual realm. Your intuition is very adaptable and it's almost like to have your life and to have every decision you make and the way that you go about working with spirit and the way you go about in your daily life, to have everything so regimented, it almost feels to me like that goes against everything about spirit, if that makes sense. So I'm definitely, and this is sort of a little bit off topic from what I'm actually going to be talking about, but it just sort of leads into why you'll find that with some mediums, their process might be completely and utterly different from the next medium and the next after that, if I've explained that well enough. So I just wanted to begin with sort of talking about that because, when I was in the stages of really trying to learn and understand the process of working with spirit, because from the last couple of podcasts you'll know that with me they've just sort of been around. So when it came down to figuring out how to work with them and work with spirit, trying to find anything that was sort of really pinned down on the how-tos was really hard, and everything was sort of quite vague. That being said, I did manage to piece together a process for myself for how to go about it, and that's sort of why I'm going to talk about how I prepare for getting into the state of performing a reading, is because I sort of didn't find anything that was like, okay, this is exactly how I sit down and do a reading. And for me, that's kind of what I needed. But I also feel that because everybody's process is so different and everybody's process is so personal to themselves that perhaps there's many out there that may not want to share it. There might be many out there that don't want to share it all, or perhaps their personal process for their conducting of their mediumship is too personal to share. And I mean, there may be a plethora of people out there that do share it and are quite open about it. I just didn't find that, and I would have loved to have found that, because that's really what I was searching for. But I was still able to piece together my own process. I was still able to take little pieces of information and puzzle it together to suit myself. And how I go about it is going to be different to other people out there, and that's totally fine. But how I also go about it in the future will probably be very different to how I do it now. And that's because I'm still working with discerning from ego and intuition, and that may very well be a topic for another day. But for me, that's been sort of the biggest struggle, is learning, or was, I'm much better at it now, but learning what was ego, aka my own thoughts, my own opinions, my own input into communicating and channeling spirit, and my intuition, which is spirit, which is the messages. And it can be very hard because it's sort of like a battle that goes on within your own mind, sort of in the space of your third eye. And while this battle is going on, your job is to try and gain the information and piece together the messages. So at the beginning, for me, it was quite hard to go, okay, is that a message, or is that my ego, or is that my own thought, or, you know, because everything sort of comes through lightly. As you sort of work with it, it does become very clear. And now when I sit down for a reading, it's very obvious that what I'm receiving is from spirit. But there's still the struggle in trying not to put too much of my own spin on what it is that they're showing me. And that's purely down to my own doing. And that's simply because, I mean, I'm a bit of a talker. I like to talk, and I've mentioned that before. So it can be quite difficult, especially at the start, when you receive a message to try and... I'm sorry, I keep clearing my throat. For whatever reason, my asthma's decided to be a bit of a jerk at the moment, so I'm trying not to cough and splutter. So how I perceive a message can be very different to how it's intended. And I think I've probably mentioned this before. So basically, perception is in the eye of the beholder. So how I may perceive a blue pen can be very different to how the message for that blue pen and what that means for the person you're performing the reading for. So say if I'm shown a blue pen, that could be, for me, that would probably mean writing and spending time. I do a lot of journaling. I do a lot of writing. I write for a few different places. Excuse me. Uni and what have you, other things, articles, blogs, whatever. And so a blue pen or any pen will mean something different to me, whereas for who it's intended, if I was to just say, okay, I get writing when I've been shown a blue pen, well, that would be wrong because writing wasn't the message. The message was a blue pen. So my job is to simply say and simply pass on the message. I'm being shown a blue pen. And then that little piece of information, while to myself and to yourself may seem so minuscule and insignificant because the meaning behind it doesn't resonate with you, it could be something very specific for somebody else, and it usually is. A blue pen to me means a couple of little things that aren't overly important, but to somebody else, their grandparent may have wore a blue pen in their pocket and it was their only blue pen. Somebody may have engraved on a pen, gifted a special pen. Whatever the scenario, the message that comes through is the message that should be relayed. And I've definitely got a little bit off topic there, but but basically, so that you've got that internal battle with ego and intuition, and so trying to find ways to incorporate a balance into how I prepare for a reading has very much been affiliated with trying to control that internal war, internal warfare in my head. Okay, so basically, when I was looking for ways to go about actually providing a reading, once I realised that this is something that I should try to do and should do, and I actually started to listen to my intuition, a big part of a lot of what I found from others is meditation. There's a few people that I watch on YouTube, and I just sort of came across random videos while I was trying to figure it all out, and I can let you know who they are too. Anyway, a big part of their process was meditation. One lady said she won't even sit down without having previously meditated. The duration of the meditation can vary, basically with your learning, and as you develop, you'll sort of just know when you're ready, and I have found that. So when I start the meditation, and I'll go into which meditation it is that I use, when I start the process of meditating, after a while I will see a few of my guides. I haven't met them all yet. I know that there's more there that want to come in, but they wait until I'm ready. And I don't say that at all to be disrespectful. They wait until I'm ready for me. They know, they might pop in, and if they can tell that I'm not ready yet, then they'll come back later, if that makes sense. So my guides will come in. I also have 3 family members in spirit that come in as well, and they'll be there also. I have a very strong male guide who's always at the forefront. So he'll come in first, then I also have a female guide, and then I have the 3 family members. So they all sort of come in. We may have a little bit of a discussion. There'll be a little bit of me sort of just returning back to a relaxed state, and they'll usually give me the nod, or I'll sort of go through the process of who it is we're connecting with. I do a little spiel, and then basically I just sort of know when it's time to begin. Now, initially I would do a relaxation meditation for about 30 minutes, and then I have found a meditation on YouTube that I do like to play while I'm performing the reading. I'm starting to not need that as much, but it definitely keeps me in that frame of mind, and I definitely needed that at the start to remain focused and remain within that headspace of being able to receive the messages clearly. So the actual process, so the steps that I now am currently taking involve, I sort of, I'm a pretty basic Jane. I don't wear makeup every day. I prefer to be comfortable, and there's been a couple of videos out there that I've watched where, it's been said that it's disrespectful if you sort of don't put on a bit of makeup and get yourself prepared, excuse me, in a presentable way for inviting spirit in, to treat it as though you're inviting somebody over for tea, if that makes sense. I don't know why I keep saying if that makes sense. I say it all the time. But anyway, I sort of, my intuition has always been to go with what feels right. And if someone was coming over to my home, I'm sort of like, well, you're in my space, so, and while I would, make them comfortable, it's sort of like mi casa, zu casa here. Like, if you come in, if you want to drink, like, I'll offer it to you, but you want to go to the fridge and help yourself, you want to go to the cupboard and eat my food, like, you do you. I don't mind. If you're in my house, it's your house too, kind of thing. So to go to the not even the effort, but just to get all prettied up and put on makeup, that's not me, and I wouldn't do that if somebody was coming to my home. For me, it's more about just being respectful and being mindful. And I have had this conversation with one of my guides, and they agree, like, if I'm okay with it, then it's fine. So it's sort of like, if you're listening to anybody that's trying to help you get in to meditation, or working with your intuition, or communicating with your guides, whatever it is that you're doing, tarot cards, whatever, and you're doing as I did, and you're sourcing out different avenues to get guidance and understand a process. A big one is to just, the biggest one of all is just to trust your intuition and trust your gut. Definitely take on the advice, because that's exactly how I learned. I would start doing meditation, and that I would put on a nice outfit, I would put on makeup, and I would get ready to do it, and I just didn't feel comfortable, because that's not who I am. I'm not somebody that wears a lot of makeup, and it's not at all that I'm saying that it's a bad thing. It's just I didn't feel comfortable, because it's not something that I do. If you do that every day and you would feel comfortable connecting without doing that, then that's definitely your intuition. That's definitely your way of understanding that that's something that you should do. That will help you to connect, because you want to be comfortable. I guess that's what I'm trying to say here, is you want to be as comfortable as you possibly can in order to perform the reading. So unless I'm feeling comfortable within myself, I can't connect as well, because I'm too focused on the fact that, I just really want to itch my face, but I can't because I've got 2 gallons of makeup on, So it's just about being comfortable. So I didn't do that. I no longer do that. I basically sit down somewhere I'm comfortable. I perform a lot of my readings in my bedroom at a altar table that I've got set up. But initially I would just lay on the lounge, because that's the place that I felt most comfortable. I couldn't get into that state by sitting up in a chair or what have you, in that sort of, so I would sort of sit on my comfy lounge, and that felt better at the time, because it was a big struggle to sort of relax and get into the meditation. Okay, so I just wanted to go and get the actual names for the meditations that I use. So basically, at the start, every single time I would go into a reading, I would do a quick 5 to 10 minute guided meditation of protection and calming. The ones that I use now, I have all of these up on my YouTube channel. I have them saved as playlists. So that's Spiritual Medium Shannon. You can find me on YouTube. Basically, I used one by the Honest Guys, a guided meditation for white light protection. There's a psychic ability by Dorshi, I think that's how you say that. And that's also a guided meditation. There's a 5-minute calming meditation that I use by the Honest Guys, and another one, a guided meditation for deep relaxation, and that one's about 20 minutes with the Honest Guys. So I would do one of those, sometimes 2 of them. I would usually do either the 18-minute one on its own, or I would do the protection and calming meditations together. The psychic ability by itself. So those are the main ones that I use. So the protection meditation, I pretty much did this every single time before I would start the reading, because you do want to build up a protective barrier or a protective cocoon for when you go into performing a reading. And as I hadn't done any prior, and I'll go more on protection in another podcast, but I did that to build up my protection. So I did that every single time because I hadn't done this before, and it's sort of one of those things that I just felt I needed to do. I needed to be protected, and I needed to be protected well, and in order to be protected well, I had to build up that white light cocoon, that white light energy. So I would do that. The next meditation that I did find, and I use this one still now. I don't always do the protection meditations and that prior. I quite often just get straight into it with this one, but I do a protection meditation at least once a week. And that's just because I know that that's what I need to do. So, I think it's Taos, Taos. I'm sorry, I'm so rubbish when it comes to pronunciations. Wind's Spirit Music, and it's the Seek the Light Within 30-minute Awaken Your Third Eye. Whoopsie. Awaken Your Third Eye meditation. So this, for me, the first time I did this meditation, I'd already done the protective meditation. The first time, so it was probably a month or 2 into providing readings, and I came across this meditation, and it just like straight away gets me into that meditative state. The messages come through clear. I am more aware. I am relaxed. My guides come through clear. I've just found it to be the best for me. But you're more than welcome to go and, these aren't my personal meditations. I haven't created them, so you can go and find them and check them out for yourself. But there are so many out there that if they're not for you, go and the Seek the Light Within isn't a guided meditation. It's just meditative sound, meditative music. So go and have a listen, and even if you just do a meditation for the simple act of doing a meditation, have a look and see what's out there and see what comes forward while you're using the audio to meditate, and you'll probably find, as I did, a few that just feel good. And that's it for me, and that one works really well for me. So I'll still, when I do the reading, I'll wear headphones and I'll play that in the background, and it just helps to keep all distractions out. Whoever I'm doing the reading for probably thinks I look like a ninny, but it just keeps me in that frame of mind. For somebody that is such a thinker, a talker, it helps to relinquish all of that, and I can just be present and in the moment and performing the reading. So they're the meditations that I use. I do also do some work with crystals. It's nothing overly adventurous, I would say. I work with jet. I haven't got any tourmaline, any black tourmaline, but I am definitely being called to get some, and I didn't even know what that was before I started doing readings, and it was like, you need to get some tourmaline. So anyways, I'm on the hunt for some of that. But at the moment I use jet. I'm trying to think what else it is that I use. Now I'm having a mental blank and I can't remember what it's called. But there's a couple of black stones that I use. I use clear crystal quartz. And I basically just have them around me. There are days, if I'm sort of having a bit of a flat day or what have you, on those particular days, I will hold on to them during the relaxation process of the meditation. And then when I get into the reading, I'll put them down. So that's just how I feel to work with them. So that's how I work with them. Basically from there, it's usually, that's pretty much it in terms of getting into the frame of mind for performing and preparing the reading. From there, it's more of a internal conversation with spirit. I basically will have the name of who it is that I'm doing the reading for. Quite often I don't have a picture. It's only if somebody reaches out on Instagram or Facebook directly where I can see their picture. Otherwise, and I generally ignore that because there's no saying that who's on the profile is who it is that you're doing the reading for. So I just go with the name. There's been a couple of times where the readings that I've done have just been a username, and that's fine. It's worked fine because it's about connecting to the energy. Anyway, sidetracked. So from there, I basically ask my guides and my ancestors to show me the person in question, show me their spirit, show me their soul, show me who they are, how they tick, what they believe, what they feel, their hopes, their dreams, their hindrances. And then the next step from there, I then ask for any who have messages to come forward. I ask that the messages are from a place of light and love. And then I pretty much go about now. There is a process that you can go through in how it is that you want to receive the messages. And basically, this can be, you can go down a list. So each of the clairs, which I've mentioned in the previous podcast, provide you with tools and ways in which Spirit can communicate with you to get the messages across. So I went through one day and did a meditation with each of the clairs and explained, okay, this is how I'll work with this clair, this is how I'll work with this clair, you know, clairsentient, or clair touch. I was specific and said if I am to feel any physical ailments, any illnesses, any touch, it's to be on a scale of 1 to 10, this much intensity. And I went through everything and put those boundaries up, because the biggest thing that you need to understand is to set your boundaries. At the end of the day, this is your vessel and you control how you interact with spirit. So I put those intentions out to my guides during meditation, And I also stipulated how I will see and connect and channel spirit. So, as again referring to a previous podcast with the lady at the previous home, when she showed me herself in a full manifested physical form, it was too much for me. I couldn't handle it. I didn't like it. It made me feel uncomfortable. So I set that intention as a boundary. You know, when spirit comes forward, it's not to be in a physical form. I'll experience the connection through my third eye. I don't want any physical channeling, so any form of possession or what have you, that's not okay with me. So that was stipulated. You know, you basically set the rules for how it's going to go. I don't feel comfortable with spirit being behind me. So my guides, my male guide Michael is to my right, and my female guide Shalara is to my left, and then my three family members are behind me. My guides and my ancestors and those that are on my team, they can be behind me, but when I channel, the channel opens up in front of me, and that's how it works. Anybody that tries to go off to the side or anything like that, it's not going to happen. It's at the front, and that's it. And I have had one lady at the start sort of try and get around this, and she was sort of edging further and further and further to come behind me, and I just sort of stopped the reading and was like, look, if you've got something to say, it needs to happen over here, because that's not happening. And the second that was done, it was done, and she fell back into place, and that was fine. Because that's just how I feel comfortable. It might sound like a lot of information to take off at once, and it might be a little bit mind-boggling to some of you, but that's just how it works for me, and that's just what I felt comfortable with doing. And now that those boundaries are set, like, that's known, and my guides will influence and implement that for me, and there's been no scenario since where like that lady, I was starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable. It's just not like that now, because that's how it's going to go. They know that that's how it's going to go, and they respect that. So yeah, basically that's that. And then from there, that's basically it. I don't have a lot of, if there's sort of like physical illness or ailments, and that's not one of the clairs that comes through too strong for me. But if I'm open to it, I will state that when I'm going over, you know, who it is that we're doing the reading for. I will sort of state, you know, show me any physical ailments of, you know, such and such, to the level of between 1 and 10, the intensity I wish to feel it, the sensations and whatnot, because you don't want to be, you know, taking on the pain of somebody else too strong. You don't want to be overly uncomfortable and then be at a point of exhaustion and unable to finish the reading. So I've sort of gone with around a 6 and a 7. It doesn't happen for me very often. It happens every now and then. And it's got to the point where I sort of don't even stipulate it now when I go into a reading, because if it's going to come through, it'll come through, and they know my boundaries. So, you know, I just leave that as is. But you can do that as well. You can stipulate at the start, going into it, while you're still in the process of learning. If you want to and you feel called to, you can go and stipulate each one of the clairs every single time, how it's going to work for you, what you're going to do, you know. And it does mean that there is a bit of a process before you start performing the reading, but that's okay, because at the start, that will, if that makes you more comfortable, then that's totally fine. And it did for me, and it would be about an hour process before I would even do the reading.
Now it's about a 15-minute process. Some days it's not, some days it's more, some days it's less. It just depends. And just trusting, that's the biggest thing here, just trusting your intuition and trusting your gut and trust what you're being guided to do by spirit for what makes you comfortable. I'll basically leave it there because I've rambled on for a little bit longer today. But if there's any questions around any of that, do let me know. From there, basically, then the reading is conducted, and I will go through how I finalize a reading. I can do that now, actually. So basically, the reading's done, and then at the end, you can sort of feel that everything's come through, and you can time it as well. Like, you can call the shots. If you only have the energy for a half an hour reading, well, you can say this is a half an hour reading, or when it gets on that half an hour, you're like, okay, we're done. Like, you call the shots. So once the reading itself is finished, I will thank my guides. I will thank those with their messages. I will thank Spirit for respecting the space and respecting me, and so have you. And then basically I do a cut the cord. So previously I wouldn't disconnect after the reading. It was sort of like the reading was over and then that's it. I would get up and walk away and go about my day. And there was a few times there, because you take on the energy of those that you're doing the reading for. And there was a few times there where I would be that knackered, literally on the couch, out of energy for like 2 days. And it just real spiritual burnout, and I can definitely relate to that now. And that's what forced me into being like, why am I so buggered after doing this, some of these readings? And basically it's because I was still harboring on. I hadn't disconnected, and I was taking on too much of the other person's energy. It also fell back to my protection as well. That's still needing to be built up. So basically, I do a cut the cord. So I will inhale and exhale quite a few times, and just during that process I visualize white light coming in, and all the energy, all the burdens, all the information that's connected to the person that I've done the reading for, or persons, I will have that then come out through the mouth and visualize cords, black cords, sometimes it's silver, coming from my mouth. And then once I've done that a good few times and I feel relaxed again, and my mind feels clear, and I feel that the connection has been broken down, my guide will come in and cut the cords, and then everything just relaxes back. And that's my process for disconnecting and shutting down the reading. Once I've done that, sometimes I'll go and wash my hands. I do feel that sometimes my hands can feel a little bit heavy and buzzing with energy. So sometimes I will then go and wash my hands. But I've since been doing that process, have not been feeling so burnt out after the readings. I definitely leave that energy there. And that's basically it. I do often, I always burn a white candle, and I also do a bit of light smudging during the reading, sometimes at the start, sometimes during, sometimes at the end, sometimes all together. I just go with it on the day, whatever feels right, basically. And that's pretty much it. If you've got any questions, definitely reach out. You can check out my website, which, if you head to my Instagram, I'm just trying to think the best way to get you to find where everything is. If you head to my Instagram, that's sort of like the hub for all of my socials. My website can be found in my bio. So basically it's Spiritual Medium Shannon on Instagram, and if you head there you can find links to my YouTube, my website, and in my website it's got links to everything else. Okay, I hope you guys have enjoyed that reading. Reach out on my Instagram with any questions. DM me. I'm more than happy to answer them. I would love it. And I appreciate if you've listened to this and got something from it. If you want to share your process, again, reach out. My email's available at any time, and I'd love to hear from you. Okay, and I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast on how I prepare/perform a reading. And you've been listening to Spiritual Sharing with me, Spiritual Medium Shannon.